This is embarrassing work, absolutely embarrassing. Ethan Rowe, a 39-year-old arrogant supervisor whose voice always carried further than his reasoning, fired the words as he marched toward Marcus Hill. You've compromised the entire project the moment you walked in. I don't know who told you you're skilled, but they lied. His finger shot toward Marcus like a command, and he kept moving before the insult even settled. You're holding this team back and wasting my time. Every cut you've made looks like guesswork. I should have replaced you the moment I saw your toolkit. The room stilled without anyone intending it to. Workers paused mid-task. Phones stopped tapping. Amber Clark, a 34-year-old quiet administrator with a gentle presence, froze halfway through recording inventory, her eyes flicking from Ethan to Marcus with growing discomfort. Ethan kept advancing until he stood chest to chest with Marcus. Marcus Hill, a 42-year-old disciplined craftsman whose calm never arrived late, didn't move. He didn't flinch. He didn't blink. His hands remained lightly positioned on the wooden frame he'd been examining, steady as if the insults had landed somewhere far from him. Ethan's voice sharpened. Look at this. Look at it. Are you seriously calling this professional work? He snatched a piece of sandpaper from the table and waved it inches from Marcus's face. This belongs in a school project, not on my floor, under my supervision. Marcus lifted his eyes, slow and unhurried, as if measuring the moment. What exactly is the issue you see? His tone was controlled, grounded, so calm it only irritated Ethan more. Marcus asked the question not with defiance, but with a patient willingness that made Ethan feel mocked despite no mockery being present. The issue? Ethan barked. You are the issue. This sloppy, lazy approach you people bring. Marcus didn't react. His face remained composed. His voice, still steady, barely rose enough for nearby workers to hear. I asked about the work, Ethan. You're discussing something else. A small wave moved through the watching employees, a shift of shoulders, widened eyes, breath held. Not one person dared interrupt, but the discomfort grew visible. Some workers exchanged looks, whispering faint reactions, unsure whether to stay or escape the scene. Amber's eyes glistened with worry. She stepped forward slightly, then stopped when Ethan's anger swelled again. Don't you correct me. Ethan snapped, chest heaving as if he had been challenged to a duel. You don't get to question me. You don't get to stand there acting smart with that blank expression. He jabbed a finger at Marcus's sternum. You answer when I speak. That's how this works. Marcus didn't step back. His voice softened in a way that somehow carried more weight. I'm answering. You aren't asking about the work. Ethan scoffed, loud and dramatic, trying to force dominance into the air. I don't need your commentary. I don't need your tone. I need you to understand that you're lucky to even be on this site. Do you hear me? Lucky. Marcus watched him quietly, letting Ethan burn through his fury. In his mind, he mentally revisited the plans he had signed off 3 months ago. The designs he had crafted late at night, the beams he calculated, the support frames he structured from memory. None of that needed to be spoken, not yet. His restraint was its own quiet field of power, and it unsettled Ethan more than any outburst could have. Jordan Tate, a 46-year-old respected consultant who carried his authority like an unspoken shield, approached slowly from behind. He didn't intervene yet. He simply stood with a posture that said he was taking everything in, storing every detail. Ethan wasn't done. He circled the table, picking up a measuring tool Marcus had placed down moments earlier. This? You call this aligned? You call this precise? This is trash work, he said, tossing it back onto the table with a clatter that sent a ripple of silence across the room. If you're trying to ruin the project, congratulations, you're doing a great job. Marcus inhaled once, letting the breath anchor him. If something is misaligned, show me, he said. And if something is unclear, ask. I'll walk you through it. You'll walk me through it? Ethan repeated, eyes narrowing. Who do you think you are? Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence, steady, immovable, made Ethan feel small for a moment he refused to acknowledge. That moment passed quickly as his anger returned like a second wave. I'll tell you who you are, Ethan hissed. You're a mistake on this team. A burden. Someone who got hired to make this place look diverse instead of actually do competent work. And I'm tired of pretending otherwise. The air grew heavy. Amber's jaw tensed. A worker in the far corner dropped a tool by accident. Jordan's expression sharpened into protective focus. Ethan's last words hung between them like a dangerous signal, one that everyone understood, even those who pretended they didn't hear. Marcus finally spoke. You're making statements you'll regret. Ethan laughed, a quick, dry bark. Try me. Marcus's gaze remained calm, patient, painfully collected. I am trying, he said. Very hard. Some of the workers let out an exhale they didn't know they were holding. The room felt like a line stretched too tight. Every word, every breath, every small shift carried weight. And through the tension, through the humiliation, through the rising racial venom Ethan spewed, Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't break his posture. The dignity he held was something earned through years of mastery, responsibility, discipline, and something Ethan couldn't comprehend, not if you were standing in that room. Watching a man hold his dignity under such pressure, what would you do or say? Would you stay silent like most, or step forward for justice? If this moment pulls at something inside you, hit subscribe for stories that confront real injustice with real strength. Ethan took a step closer, not recognizing, or refusing to recognize, the shift happening around him. The warehouse floor had gone still in a way that didn't require sensory description to feel. Workers stood in tense clusters. Jordan watched with an expression that balanced patience and readiness. Amber's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her clipboard tighter. The atmosphere thickened as Ethan leaned in until the brim of his safety vest brushed Marcus's shoulder. I'm giving you one last chance, Ethan said, voice low but loud enough for every corner of the floor to hear. Admit your mistakes. Admit you messed this up. Admit you're out of your depth. Marcus straightened, just enough to remind Ethan that he was not the one shrinking in this exchange. I won't admit to something that isn't true, he replied. And I won't pretend you're speaking from a place of leadership. Ethan laughed again, but the sound cracked at the edges. Look at you, acting like you're above correction, acting like you know more than me. He waved a dismissive hand. That pride is exactly why people like you fail. Jordan shifted at that line. A few workers exchanged glances. Amber swallowed hard, her voice trapped behind fear and uncertainty. She had seen racial disrespect before, but never this openly, never this confidently deployed in front of an entire team. Marcus didn't blink. If you want to talk about the work, he said, then let's talk about the work. But the personal remarks, you need to dial those back. Dial back. Ethan scoffed. I'm your supervisor. I'll say whatever needs to be said. And if you don't like it, you can pack your things and go. I don't want this project ruined because you don't know how to use a measuring square. Marcus looked at the tool on the table, the same one that Ethan had thrown down. A faint thought passed through his mind. How many hours he had spent designing the exact measurement sequence Ethan was complaining about. How many revisions he had made. How he had personally structured the load-bearing requirements for that very frame. He kept all that inside. Holding back wasn't weakness. It was control. Show me where the measurement fails, Marcus said again. Don't instruct me. Ethan snapped. Don't you dare. He reached for the wooden panel Marcus had prepared and held it up as if presenting a piece of evidence. This right here? Wrong. The angle is off. And you're telling me you didn't mess this up? Marcus's response was calm. That panel isn't cut yet. Ethan froze. What? It's pre-marked. Nothing's been cut. The warehouse shifted again, just slightly, but enough that Ethan noticed. A few workers looked down, pretending they weren't listening. Others simply waited for the next eruption. You know what? Ethan said, this isn't about a panel. This is about you thinking you can challenge me. Thinking because you've been here longer than I have that you get respect automatically. Marcus stood still. Respect is earned. So is authority. Ethan stepped forward again. Authority comes with rank. And I outrank you. Marcus's eyes held steady. For now. Ethan stiffened. What's that supposed to mean? It means your behavior is being watched. For a moment, Ethan looked around, realizing that the room wasn't as supportive of him as he thought. Amber's gaze dropped. Workers' eyes shifted away from him. Jordan's expression was unreadable but sturdy. Ethan sneered. I don't care who's watching. They brought me in to clean this place up, to raise the standards. And the first thing that needs cleaning is you. Marcus tilted his head slightly. You're speaking emotionally, not professionally. That line struck something deep in Ethan, something insecure, something he tried very hard to hide. I'm not emotional, he hissed. You think I'm emotional because I'm calling out incompetence. Marcus didn't rush. No, you're emotional because you're threatened. The words landed harder than any shout could. Ethan stepped back as if the sentence itself shoved him. His jaw tightened, his eyes darting around the room, seeking someone, anyone, who would validate his authority. Jordan took one step forward. Not enough to intervene, but enough to signal that he was done observing from a distance. Marcus continued, his voice unchanged. If you want to discuss the project, I'm available. If you want to insult people, that says more about you than it does about me. You're lecturing me now? Ethan growled. You're a carpenter, a basic laborer. I'm the supervisor. Marcus felt the insult, but he didn't let it touch his expression. Internally, he thought about the emails he'd exchanged with corporate leadership, the blueprint approvals carrying his signature, the contract addendum that named him lead craft consultant, an appointment not yet announced publicly. He wondered how long Ethan would keep embarrassing himself before that information surfaced. Ethan, Marcus said evenly, you're doing a lot of talking, but none of it is helping the work. Oh, I'll help the work, Ethan replied sharply, by removing you from it. Amber finally found her voice, but only barely. Maybe we should pause and review. Stay out of this. Amber. Ethan snapped without looking at her. She stepped back, ashamed for trying, ashamed for failing. Marcus watched her retreat, then looked at Ethan. This isn't leadership, he said softly. It's panic pretending to be authority. Ethan's face flushed. You're done here. I mean it. If you stay on this floor, I'll file an incident report so strong you won't work in this city again. Marcus paused, studying him, not as a threat, but as a man building his own downfall plank by plank. You might want to reconsider that, Marcus said. Why? You don't scare me. I'm not trying to. For a full second, Ethan didn't speak. The silence felt like an invisible rope tightening around him. What are you implying? Ethan demanded. That you're jumping to conclusions, Marcus said. And that when the truth comes out, you'll wish you hadn't. The workers watching leaned in without moving. Tension rose without a single sensory image being used. Emotion carried everything. The room waited for the next spark, the next slip, the moment the story would turn. That if you've ever witnessed someone hold their dignity while being wrongly accused, what would you have done in their place? If this moment grips you, share your thoughts, because stories like this deserve voices. And if you believe everyone deserves fairness at work, consider subscribing for more powerful justice stories Ethan's breathing shifted into something coarse and uneven, the kind that came from feeling cornered without understanding why. He looked around the warehouse as if the walls themselves betrayed him by not echoing his authority the way he expected. Marcus stood unmoved, his calm posture creating a contrast so sharp it only deepened Ethan's frustration. Jordan remained nearby, arms loosely folded, quietly watching the shape of the confrontation evolve. "You've got a smart mouth for someone on the verge of unemployment," Ethan said. Trying to regain the control he felt slipping, Marcus waited a moment before replying. "You keep saying that," he answered, "but you still haven't explained what mistake you believe I made." Ethan raised a hand toward the unfinished wooden frame. "This entire setup is off. The spacing, the alignment, the measurements, the coordination, all of it. And it's your fault." Marcus glanced at the frame and then back at Ethan. "You're looking at the preliminary layout, not the final assembly." Ethan shook his head. "Stop talking like you know better than me. You don't." Marcus let silence respond first. A deliberate, patient silence. Then, with a voice that held not an ounce of irritation, he said, "I know the design." "You know your role," Ethan snapped. "Which is not design. It's taking orders." A few workers shifted uncomfortably, their eyes bouncing between the two men. Amber's hands at her sides tightened, nails pressing into her palm, though she said nothing. She had seen enough to know this wasn't a simple disagreement about carpentry. She wasn't brave enough to intervene, but the conflict weighed on her heavily. Jordan stepped closer, still silent, but no longer neutral in his stance. Ethan noticed. "What?" he barked. "You have something to say?" Jordan's voice was deep, measured, carrying the tone of someone accustomed to being heard. "Not yet," he said, "but I'm listening." Ethan scoffed, but the attention from Jordan unsettled him. He turned back to Marcus as if doubling down would save him. "You think you're clever. You think staying calm makes you right. But your work is sloppy, and I'm done pretending it isn't." Marcus exhaled softly. "You still haven't pointed out a specific error. The entire layout is wrong." Ethan insisted. "This frame should be 5 millimeters inward. And this one," he tapped the edge sharply, "should be reinforced at the joint." Marcus looked at the spot Ethan touched. "It will be. At the proper phase." "So you're saying I'm wrong?" Ethan demanded. "Yes," Marcus replied quietly. The room inhaled. Amber closed her eyes for a second, bracing for what would follow. Ethan's face contorted. "You don't talk to me like that. You don't contradict me. You don't get to challenge my knowledge." Marcus's voice remained even. "I'm challenging your assumption." "Oh, that's it," Ethan said. "You're done. You're fired." Jordan stepped forward before Marcus could respond. "Ethan," he said calmly, "you don't have the authority to fire anyone." Ethan spun toward him. "I'm the supervisor. I have plenty of authority." "You have operational authority," Jordan corrected, his tone unwavering. "Not contractual, not structural, not personnel. And who are you to tell me otherwise?" Ethan shot back. Jordan didn't answer immediately. His silence created a pause more powerful than Ethan's shouting. Workers turned to face him, watching closely, waiting for the shift they sensed was coming. Ethan pointed at Marcus again, refusing to release his target. "All I need is one reason to push you out of this project. Just one." Marcus finally responded with a soft, steady line. "Then find one in the work, not in me." Ethan stepped so close their shoulders nearly touched. "The work is trash," he hissed. "You don't belong here. People like you are given opportunities you didn't earn. And I'm the one who has to deal with it." Amber flinched visibly. The words struck everyone in the room in different ways: shame, shock, anger, dread. One worker whispered something under his breath, but dared not speak louder. Marcus remained composed. Is that your final assessment? It is, Ethan snapped. Marcus kept his gaze level. Then you should know something. No, Ethan cut in. You're done talking. Jordan's voice interrupted sharply but without aggression. He's not done, and you're going to want to hear what he has to say. Ethan turned, fists clenched. Why? Because you like him? Because you're both. Jordan stepped in closer before Ethan completed the sentence, not touching him, but drawing a boundary Ethan could feel. Finish that sentence, Jordan said, and you'll regret it professionally. Ethan turned red, swallowing the rest of his insult. Marcus broke the silence. Ethan, he said, I haven't said anything about myself because I didn't need to. I've been waiting for you to talk about the work. But you haven't. You've only talked about your assumptions. Ethan smirked. Because that's all you are, an assumption of skill. Nothing more. Marcus nodded slightly, not in agreement, but in acknowledgement of what was coming. Then let me clarify something. Amber looked up. Jordan's posture straightened. Workers leaned in. You're evaluating a system I created, Marcus said. A plan I designed. A layout I engineered. And a project I was brought in to oversee. Ethan blinked. What? Marcus continued with calm precision. Everything you're criticizing was measured, drafted, and approved by me. Ethan's face slackened. You? No, that's impossible. You're a carpenter. A master carpenter, Marcus corrected softly, and the lead craft consultant for this entire site. The warehouse seemed to pause, as if the building itself were absorbing the revelation. I signed off on the architectural carpentry plans 3 months ago, Marcus added. You've been yelling at the person who built the system you're trying to explain. Ethan staggered a step back. No, you're lying. Jordan spoke next. He's not lying. I'm the senior structural consultant. I oversaw the engineering review. Marcus is the lead, and he was recently appointed, quietly, strategically, as the incoming head of craft development. Corporate hasn't announced it yet. Ethan stood frozen, mouth slacked, eyes wide and confused. That's not. Why wasn't I told? Jordan stepped forward. Because leadership wanted to see how you treated people you believed were beneath you. Everything fell silent. Ethan searched the room, but no one stepped forward to defend him. No one nodded. No one offered reassurance. The authority he relied on drained out of him all at once. Marcus stood with the very composure Ethan tried to break. His voice, still calm, carried the final blow without cruelty. And you've given them an answer. The tension transformed into something heavier, deeper, irreversible, that if you ever witnessed someone underestimate the wrong person simply because of prejudice, how would you react in that moment? Share your thoughts if you've seen arrogance collapse under truth, and if justice in the workplace matters to you. Subscribe for more stories like this. Ethan stood stiff, like a man whose body remained upright only because his pride refused to let him collapse. But his eyes told the truth. Shock wrapped around fear. Fear wrapped around the realization that the ground beneath him had shifted in one brutal instant. The workers who once lowered their heads at his barking orders now watched him openly, no longer intimidated. Amber pressed her clipboard to her chest as if steadying herself through the unfolding justice she had silently prayed for but never expected to witness this clearly. Marcus remained composed, unshaken, the calm center of a storm Ethan had created for himself. The decisions you questioned, Marcus said softly, were mine. The systems you mocked were mine. And the authority you tried to use against me doesn't override the role I was assigned here. Ethan swallowed hard, his voice cracking as he tried to salvage control. This doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't anyone tell me? Jordan stepped forward, his tone both firm and final. Because leadership wanted to understand how you treat people when you think no one important is watching. They've received reports about your behavior before. They trusted you. They hoped you'd improve. But today confirms a pattern. Ethan's lips parted in disbelief. Reports? What reports? Jordan didn't blink. Disrespect. Bias. Intimidation. You were given opportunities to change. You didn't. A few workers lowered their gaze, remembering moments when Ethan shouted them down, mocked their questions, or dismissed their concerns. Those memories now surfaced like evidence his own behavior had once buried. Amber's voice trembled as she finally spoke. I filed one of the reports. Her words landed softly, as if she feared saying them too loudly might shatter something. You yelled at me for asking about scheduling. You said I should stick to clerical work and leave real decisions to men. Ethan spun toward her, shocked. Amber, She stepped back, not aggressively, but with a kind of newfound courage. I was afraid to say anything more, but I couldn't watch this anymore. Ethan looked around, trying to gather some sense of footing, but the room offered none. Marcus remained still, watching him with a dignity that refused to turn into cruelty. You were given chances, Marcus said, but you chose intimidation over professionalism. You chose assumption instead of communication, and you chose to attack instead of learn. Ethan's voice fell to a whisper. So what happens now? Jordan exchanged a glance with Marcus before speaking. Corporate is on site today. They're meeting with project leads in 10 minutes. I've already called and informed them of what happened. HR is coming down. Ethan flinched. HR? For what? This was just a misunderstanding. It wasn't, Marcus said quietly. You escalated. You demeaned. You threatened. You made accusations without evidence. You invoked race in a way you cannot deny. And you tried to fire someone above your rank. The room held its breath. Ethan shook his head rapidly, almost pleading now. I didn't know who you were. Marcus didn't raise his voice. That's the point. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it again, then whispered, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean. Jordan stepped closer, voice carrying the weight of finality. You'll be removed from the site while an investigation proceeds. Your position will be reviewed. Your promotion track is suspended. And after what happened today, your future here is unlikely. Ethan looked like he had been hollowed out. His hands hung useless at his sides. He turned toward the workers who once feared him, searching for even one sympathetic face. None appeared. They didn't look cruel. They simply looked done. Amber lowered her head. Not out of shame this time, but out of relief. Marcus spoke once more. The quiet authority of a man who never needed to raise his voice to be heard. Ethan, I don't want your downfall. I never did. But respect is not optional in a workplace. It's not a suggestion. And the way you treated people caught up with you today. Ethan's shoulders drooped. For the first time, the arrogance was gone. Only consequence remained. Jordan gestured toward the exit. HR is waiting. Ethan walked slowly, as if the floor resisted each step. No one cheered. No one smirked. Justice didn't need applause. It simply stood on its own. Once Ethan was gone, the room exhaled. Workers returned to their duties, but something in the air had shifted, the kind of shift that teaches everyone watching that silence is not safety. Neutrality is not leadership, and dignity can stand taller than any raised voice. Amber approached Marcus, nervously tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Thank you, she whispered. For what? Marcus asked. For not letting him break you, she said. And for giving the rest of us courage. Marcus nodded gently. Courage has a way of spreading when someone chooses to stand. Jordan clapped a hand on Marcus's shoulder. You handled that with more discipline than most people could manage. Corporate's going to have a lot of respect for how you dealt with this. Marcus gave a soft, steady breath. I didn't do it for them. I did it because this place deserves better. As the team regrouped and the day resumed, Marcus felt none of the triumph Ethan assumed he wanted. Instead, he felt the quiet truth that dignity doesn't need victory to exist. It only needs a refusal to let injustice define the outcome. Before walking back to his workstation, he looked toward the door Ethan had disappeared through and reflected on the moment. Equality isn't a privilege, Marcus said softly. It's a principle, and no workplace stands strong unless everyone is respected. If you were here during this moment, watching someone regain their dignity after being wrongly humiliated, what lesson would you take with you into your own workplace? Share your thoughts if stories of justice resonate with your spirit. And subscribe if you believe every person deserves fairness, integrity, and respect where they work.